right. Good evening, commissioners. Welcome, and over to you, Chair Harrington.
Thank you, Clerk Moss. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, February 28th, 2023 Washington County Board of Commissioners meeting for this evening. Clerk Moss, could you do us the honors, please?
Thank you, Chair Harrington. The Washington County Board of Commissioners, also meeting as the Board of Directors for Clean Water Services, is now meeting this regular session, February 28th, 2023. Commissioner Treese?
I'm here.
Commissioner Rogers?
Here.
Commissioner Fye?
I'm here.
Commissioner Willie?
Here.
Chair Harrington?
Here. I appreciate the fact that while we have gotten into our hybrid meetings for evenings like this, where the roads are getting slippery in some of the elevations around, that we are practicing safety. So we have more staff and a couple of our commissioners who are zooming in from home tonight. So the first item on our agenda, or the next item, is public communication. This is an opportunity for members of our community to come and speak with us for up to 2 minutes each. Clerk Moss, do we have anyone who wishes to join us this evening?
Yes, we do, Madam Chair. First up, we have Mr. Dale Feek.
And we'll take care of everyone in the room first, and then we'll ask for those online. Thank you.
Madam Chair Harrington and commissioners here and commissioners online. I'm Dale Feek, Chair of the Washington County Citizen Action Network. I'm not going to ask you to sing along with me tonight, as I did before, but I do hope. Well, thank you, Commissioner Willie. But I do want to have you join me in thinking about some of the problems of the semiconductor industry, in particular Intel, and the toxic emissions they put out, and also, and I sent you an email related to the pre-enforcement letter that was sent to Intel for 3 violations. So I sent that to you a couple weeks ago, actually. And I knew I wasn't going to be here last week, so I sent that to you, and then I followed up because I did a public records request. I got the actual letter. I sent that to the Pamplin papers. That was Troy Shin, and then I also sent it to Mike Rogaway. He's an Oregonian reporter, and so they both wrote stories about that and put them in the respective papers. And so I got the links to that. Well, Mike Rogaway sent me the link. So, because I sent him the information. And so then he then wrote the story, and there are 2 stories. And if you read, I gave it to you in hard copy. Kevin distributed those. And but if you read it in email, there are links in the stories that they wrote. So if you want to read the links, you have to read the email that I sent to you. And John Wheeler today, during your work session, talked about hazardous materials. And so these are hazardous materials, and I'm a member of the local emergency planning committee, official member, and I'm glad that that is getting operational in the county, and I appreciate John Wheeler's and Scott Porter's leadership in doing that. Please consider what I emailed to you and gave to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dale. Next up, I'll call the next 2 up, Beth Solar and Mindy Morardi.
Go ahead, Ms. Solar.
Hi, I'm Beth Solar. I am a Washington County 4-H State Ambassador, and I've been in 4-H for about 8 years now. And when I first joined 4-H, I was very shy, and I kept to myself a lot. And through 4-H, I have grown confidence and my communication and leadership skills, and now I am able to talk in front of you all here today. And one of the main things about 4-H is our county and state fairs. And at county fair, we need a building to display our exhibits and a building to just do the judging beforehand. And during judging, we submit so many different exhibits. There are so many different project areas. There's anything from art to leathercraft to, I think there's even industrial arts. And there's also other things like communications. There's impromptu speeches and creative writing. There's just so many different categories. And during judging day, we submit our exhibits and we receive constructive criticism and feedback. And that has really helped me grow my different hobbies and skills. Another reason we still need the Cloverleaf building is we don't just use it for county fair, we use it for so many other things like 4-H Learning Day, which is coming up, and 4-H Open House. And if we do not have a building to do all of these things in, then, well, especially in the fairgrounds, then yes, we do have another place to meet, but it's very small and it will not really work as well as the Cloverleaf building at the state fairgrounds. Sorry, county fairgrounds.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Ms. Moriarty.
So my name is Mindy Murati. Sorry. I'm a junior at Glencoe High School, and I wanted to speak a little bit about my experience in 4-H. So 4-H is the largest youth development organization in the United States. It has 6.5 million members, and the goal of 4-H is to develop citizenship, leadership, responsibility, and life skills of youth through experiences. 4-H is volunteer-led, but guided and subsidized by public institutions, like OSU, which is our land-grant university, and it's kept it strong. I began my 4-H experience at age 7, and I started in a local 4-H club. Now I'm a part of 3, and I'm president of my original club. And I started entering expressive arts and all types of like crafty little projects, but I've expanded beyond that, and I've developed my skills in those like crafty projects. And something that was really special about it was during the summertime, we had our county fair, and that was like the highlight of the summer. We worked all year, my sister and I, when she was part of my club. And we worked all year to prepare for summer. And the best part was probably the one-on-one interviews with the judges, where they actually gave us like constructive criticism and tips to look for. And probably the hardest part was remembering those tips for like creating your projects next year. But it was so helpful. It was so nice. Now I'm actually a state ambassador, so I have to like support 4-H at the state level, and that's turned 4-H into something that goes on in my everyday life. It developed my leadership skills, and besides the projects, now I focus on civic engagement. During December, I actually put together a project where I was teaching kids how to sew hats, and I made 80 hats, and I donated them to Open Door during December. It was right before it turned to like 18 degrees out, so it was like a perfect time. And yeah, it's just been a great opportunity in my life.
Go, all right.
I'm sorry, Kevin. Tell us what 4-H stands for.
Oh, it stands for Head, Heart, Hands, and Health.
Right, it does. So, and you're doing a great job. I'm on the fair board. I go to the fair just to see the fair, to see the 4-H participation. I love, Catherine and I were both at the weigh-ins last year. So it's great. You're doing a great job. So thank you for your commitment to that. And it does build leaders. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for taking time tonight. Who else do we have tonight?
All right, I'll call up the next two, Karsten Becks and Charlie Scott.
Any chair you'd like. Karsten Becks is first.
Hi, my name is Karsten Becker, and I'm a Washington County ambassador and part of about 3 clubs. And I say the importance of the fairgrounds is we have a place to all of our clubs can meet there, and also we can if we didn't have the clover leaf, we won't have any place to like have meetings at. And like our dog club, we're usually we're like in one of the buildings that's outside. It is very cold out there sometimes. So it would be really nice if we had like the clover leaf for like that, or like those clubs. Also for the rabbit clubs. It's not fun being in the cold. They had a warm place like the like the clover leaf.
Great, thank you. Charlie Scott?
Hi, my name's Charlie Scott. I am 15 years old and a sophomore at Gaston High School. This is my 7th year in 4-H and my first year part of the Washington County Ambassador team. My projects in 4-H include beef, guinea pigs, and sewing. 4-H has helped me be the best I can be. While being a part of 4-H, I am responsible for studying for shows and competitions. I also maintain a record book keeping track of what I've done in 4-H. Through this, I practice self-direction and critical thinking, but I'm able to seek advice from older peers and leaders. Being an ambassador has taught me how to be an effective communicator and effective collaborator. I'm a junior superintendent at the fair, and I have learned how to be a leader to my younger peers, mentoring them with their projects. At the fair, I have made amazing friendships and some of the best memories of my 4-H career. I love the opportunity the fair gives me to speak with the public and educate them on agriculture. Every year, I'm able to show my growth in my projects while at the fair, and I enjoy going every year and look forward to it. Looking forward to the future, I've applied for a state ward and citizenship, and I have applied for National Congress, which is an opportunity for me to go to Atlanta, Georgia, and meet with 4-H members from around the country. Thank you for your time this evening. I hope my statement and that of my peers will help reinforce how important the fair is to 4-H and the community.
Well, go ahead, Commissioner Willie.
Well, thank you, Karsten. We would love to have a little bit of balance with, I know that this last fair, it was too hot, and so we couldn't show the rabbits. So we need some balance in our weather, don't we? So it's not so cold when you're trying to show up at the fairgrounds, and not so hot when we need to actually show them, but we don't have any control of that. But anyway, thank you for your participation, both of you. Again, 4-H is a great program, and we need you to stay engaged and be our future leaders.
And I hope you're coming tonight and sharing your comments with us helps you with your stepping stones towards recognition through the 4-H program of your civic leadership. And Commissioner Treese also has some comments she'd like to share. Go ahead, Commissioner Treese.
Thank you, Chair. I want to thank all of our 4-Hers that have been here tonight. And I want to let you know that I was a 4-Her, and I also know that our county administrator was a 4-Her for quite a while during the time that she was growing up. So you have people around you that are experienced and find a great deal of value in 4-H. You guys are shining stars. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for joining us tonight. Kevin, do we have anyone else who would like to join us this evening?
Yes, the last person in the room signed up is Steve Holgate. Steve?
And Steve, while you come up, I want to give Alan a shout out. Alan is the new executive director of our 4-H. I don't know if that's your correct title, Alan, but thank you very much for bringing new enthusiasm and certainly energy and growing the 4-H clubs around here. So keep up the good work. Thank you very much. Sorry, thank you.
Hello, Mr. Holgate.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak in front of you. I was born in Washington County back more years than I like to think about. Spent my summers with my grandma here in Hillsborough, just down Main Street. It's truly the home of my heart. And as I have a lot more years behind me than in front, I think of what can I do to help future generations? What can I do to see that my sons and my grandson have a better life? I think nothing may affect their future more than the looming catastrophe of climate change. And, pardon me, I need my glasses off. of climate change. We can see its effects already here in Washington County. It's had terrible effects on agriculture, business, and individuals' health, and even lives have been lost. I spent much of my life working for elected officials. I can't tell you how much I admire you for taking on the burdens that you do. I know the problems you have with budget, with having enough staff to do what needs to be done. But a philosopher once said that true freedom is knowing what it is you have to do. We have to face this looming catastrophe. We can't hope that someone else will take up our part of the responsibility. We can't wait for somebody else to do what they need to do before we will do what we need to do. We have to act on our own because it is our responsibility. There's an understandable discussion between adaptation, mitigation, and a great deal of overlap between them. But finally, this is as important as adaptation is, and it's crucial. We can't adapt our way out of this. If the house is on fire, you're not going to adapt to that. You have to help put the fire out. If we can meet that responsibility, I like to think that we may be considered the greatest generation one day. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very much. So, Madam Chair, that concludes our testimony in the room. So we'll just take a thing of, would anyone viewing this meeting on Zoom like to provide comment for up to 2 minutes? We have one hand raised. Jacqueline Jones. Jacqueline, can you hear us?
Yes, good evening, Chair Harrington, County Commissioners, and guests. My name is Jackie Dyke Jones. I'm a farmer and owner of Dyke Family Farm, LLC in Roy. My ask tonight is for diligence and leadership in being stewards of our land and natural resources in Washington County. Currently, Senate Bill 4 is being discussed at the state level through the Joint Committee on Semiconductors. And I got to watch you the other night, Commissioner Willie. It's obvious, but somehow overlooked, that without the land base of high-value farmland soils, there will be intended consequences on agriculture as an economic driver. I am strongly opposed to any development of land for semiconductor manufacturing unless it is inside the UGB. Cities across the state and private landowners are all vying for a very large if and dollar signs. The grand bargain was no bargain, but it was a deal for planning and decision-making. There are farmers saying that they were in the UGB but got taken out. They're not testifying the whole story, which is that Washington County was not holding up their deal, which is causing a current conflict. Agriculture is the #1 industry in our county. Soil cannot be grown. Irrigation is not required to be successful in capturing carbon or providing high-quality, world-class fescue grass seed. I am not opposed to semiconductors, absolutely not, but I am opposed of abusing the land and the power to push this industry, which will weaken the agriculture economy and what Oregonians love: local commodities, thriving agribusinesses, environmental sustainability, and conservation. Thank you for your time and consideration. Again, my ask is for diligence and leadership to protect our natural resources.
Thank you, Jackie.
Right. Madam Chair, I do not see any other hands raised at this time.
All right. With that, then, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda. Tonight's consent agenda consists of 2 items. One, I'm not sure what department it's from, but it authorizes the increase in purchase orders for temporary staffing, direct hire, and other employee services. And the other comes to us from the County Counsel's Office to approve for signatures on an amicus brief. What are the wishes of the commission?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor of adopting today's consent agenda, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, commissioners. Anyone opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Next, we have 2 proclamations. The first is to proclaim March 2023 as COVID-19 Remembrance Month. I believe we have some staff who are going to be joining us by Zoom. Hello there, Ms. Samantel. and take us through this proclamation. Are there any other staff members joining you? Yes, Kevin is moving them over as we speak. There's Marie Bowman Davis. I think he might be working on some others.
Yes, and we can introduce them, Chair, as we get started, if that's okay.
Certainly.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for the flexibility being allowed to join virtually tonight due to the pending inclement weather. For the record, my name is Mira Sanantal. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Director of Health and Human Services. It is an honor and a privilege to be here with you tonight for the 3-year anniversary of our first COVID-19 case. I think many of you may remember where you were when this happened. It was a monumental day. Many of you, commissioners, Chair Harrington and others, were in Washington, D.C. actually for the National Association of County Officials conference. And you had to learn about it from afar as we were making news with the first case of COVID-19 in Washington County for the state of Oregon. I was just in awe as I watched our public health team just jump into action. It was late on a Friday afternoon. It was a Friday since it was 3 years ago. And the team hasn't stopped working ever since, and they're still working hard. And our board is supporting us with our continued work, and our community partners have been invaluable. So you'll be hearing tonight briefly from Marie Bowman Davis, our Public Health Division Manager, and she is going to introduce a few of our community partners who will help share some words and read tonight's proclamation. So Marie, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mira. Thank you, Chair Harrington and Commissioners. For the record, my name is Marie Bowman Davis. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm the Public Health Division Manager and the local Public Health Administrator here in Washington County. So as Mira mentioned, today does mark the 3-year anniversary of that first identified case here in Oregon, which was from identified here in Washington County. Today, we are asking your board to proclaim March 2023 as COVID-19 Remembrance Month, which allows us an opportunity to recognize the impact of the ongoing pandemic and how it's impacting our lives of our staff, family, friends, and loved ones, and allows us to envision what it means to move to the resilience phase as we expand our understanding of how to live with COVID-19. As I recently shared with our Public Health Division, our collaborations, connections, and compassion have helped us through the emergency response phase, supported us in the current recovery phase, and will aid us as we plan for the resilience phase. We are joined this evening by Tony Del Falco, Executive Director from Latino Network, who will speak about resiliency, and Hemi Pariani, a member of the Public Health Advisory Council, who will read the proclamation. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Tony.
Do we have Tony on Zoom? Yep, he's joining us. Hello there, Mr. DeFalco. Welcome.
Hello, Chair Harrington and Commissioners. It's a pleasure to be with you all this evening. I can't thank you enough for the opportunity to be with you all. It's good to see you. And I really, on behalf of Latino Network, I'm joined by Lorena Mosqueda, our Associate Director of our Health and Wellness Program. We appreciate this opportunity. My name is Tony DeFalco. I currently serve as the Executive Director at Latino Network. Latino Network is a 27-year-old organization with services throughout Washington County, Multnomah County, and Clackamas County. And we provide services to Latinx and all communities in a wide variety of areas, from health and wellness to youth empowerment and violence prevention, to educational attainment, to economic justice, and just about everything in between. We are in deep appreciation of the county's pause here to have March as the Remembrance Month for COVID. This is a really important reflection for our community, and we want to appreciate you all for taking this time and energy to make this proclamation. In particular, we want to appreciate Washington County for the consistent and steady partnership with our community throughout this pandemic. I can't stress that enough, that partnership is in many ways what sustained us in getting through this pandemic, and certainly was a major mitigating factor in making this not worse than it was for us. Oftentimes we say that what we forget, we are doomed to repeat again. And in this case with COVID and the pandemic, where our community was hit so hard, we are especially wanting to drive home that point tonight, that if we forget what happened and we forget what we did to address this of the communities that are most vulnerable to these kinds of disasters, it will happen again. And looking forward in the theme of resilience, we were really appreciative of this opportunity to make some remarks on resilience. As the county envisions what it means to move to the resilience phase, we must maintain some of what we built during the pandemic. It will be a mistake to dismantle this infrastructure without a considerable, and we're suggesting a year-long, thoughtful evaluation of what we need to keep. We should use remaining ARPA funds to help our community's ability to be resilient from a pandemic that is still very much part of our everyday lives, impacting wages, health, recovery, violence, and so on. For us, a Latino network, that means continuing support for our community health workers to continue to help our gente navigate out of this pandemic. These community health workers have been lifelines for our familias to access services, get good information in languages of their preference, but most of all, have a trusted go-between between the community and government. For Latino Network, it also means helping our youth, including prevention, mentoring, and early intervention of youth who have had a first police interaction. All of the prevention programs are offered to all youth, not just Latinx youth. We are so proud of our ongoing and maturing partnership with Washington County. Our community is often portrayed as resilient. As for that, it's true, we are. But let's make no mistake, our Latinx communities were absolutely hammered by this pandemic. We lost wealth, we lost jobs, we lost businesses, we lost wages, we lost savings. But most of all, we lost so many lives. And as I noted earlier, it would have been so much worse if it weren't for the stalwart partnership of you, of this county, prioritizing racial equity, and all of the NGO partners who together worked so incredibly hard with public health and other agencies to minimize and mitigate the harm of the pandemic. We cannot return to normal. We need to stay in an urgency mode and an urgency mindset to accelerate justice for Latinx communities and other communities of color. This Remembrance Month is an excellent place to start, of staying in that urgency mindset and continuing to make the investments in our communities and reflect on the infrastructure we built and identifying what we need to keep as we go forward. So again, thank you to your wonderful staff for putting together this proclamation and for the invitation to share with you all this evening. It is truly my honor and privilege to be in front of you and sharing with you all. And please know that our appreciation is a huge muchísimas gracias for the work you've done and the work that we will be continuing to do in partnership. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. I'd like to now turn it over to Hemi to read the proclamation.
Okay. Good evening, Madam Chair, Commissioners. COVID-19 Remembrance Month Proclamation, February 28, 2023. Whereas in December 2019, a highly contagious and deadly new strain of the coronavirus causing the disease named COVID-19 began to spread globally, prompting the World Health Organization to declare a pandemic in March 2020. And whereas Washington County reported the first case of COVID-19 in Oregon on February 28, 2020, initiating public health and emergency response activities across the county and state. And whereas we honor, commemorate, and remember the 778 Washington County community members and 1,110,364 U.S. community members, family members, friends, and loved ones who have died from COVID-19 since the start of the pandemic. And whereas there are still approximately 1,164 cases per month in Washington County and 5 deaths, nationwide 373 people are dying every day from COVID-19. And whereas we have begun to integrate the realities of COVID-19 into our daily lives through the lifting of mask mandates, less stringent quarantine protocols, and the lifting of emergency declarations, acknowledging some of our communities continue to be disproportionately harmed by this disease. And whereas Black, Indigenous, people of color communities, communities with low income, and people with disabilities continue to deal with the compounding impacts of this disaster. And a growing number of individuals are beginning to face the realities of long COVID and the lack of resources and supports available to help those impacted by this disabling condition. And whereas our communities are resilient and continue to adapt, heal, and recover, they also continue to navigate lack of access to affordable healthcare effects of long COVID, including lost wages and mental health impacts, and the end of pandemic benefits that helped families access food and other essential resources. And whereas Washington County, in partnership with community, has worked to ensure everyone has access to vaccines and became the first county in Oregon to vaccinate 80% of adults and work to reduce the vaccine equity gap, raising the rate of adults who received at least one dose of any COVID-19 vaccine to over 85% across all races and ethnicities. Despite these successes, we know that disparities in vaccination rates still exist, and the rate of adults within the county who have received a bivalent booster is 29%. And whereas in partnership with culturally specific community partners, including the federally qualified health centers, we have saved lives through community-based vaccination clinics, distribution of at-home test kits, stabilizing households with wraparound services, investing in economic recovery, and ensuring that all members of the community have access to timely, accurate information, while the nature of the work has shifted as the pandemic has evolved. The need for continued resources to support partnership with community remains. And whereas Washington County continues to be a recognized leader in relying on science-based public health measures to keep our community safe and healthy, and a nationally recognized leader in using data, evidence, evaluation, and authentic community engagement in decision-making for pandemic response and recovery investments, ensuring support for Washington County's path to full social and economic recovery. Whereas Washington County built a COVID-19 response team comprised of more than 100 people, including county employees reassigned from within public health, health and human services, and other departments across the county, volunteers, limited duration employees, and contractors who joined to support response and recovery efforts and the public health teams whose ongoing responsibilities related to this control, prevention, and outbreak investigation have been focused on addressing COVID-19 and put their hearts into serving the community the best way possible. Now, therefore, be it resolved that on this last day of February 2023, the Washington County Board of Commissioners, acting as the local public health authority, does hereby proclaim March 2023 as COVID-19 Remembrance Month in Washington County. We encourage all community members to hold a moment of silence for lives lost a moment of gratitude for the resiliency of communities, county staff, and for the organizations who continue to support community members impacted by this disease, and a moment of silent reflection as we work together to build a resilient community despite the continued presence of COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Periani. Is there anything else you would like to comment on or present to us this evening from our 4 staff and guests?
That concludes our presentation for this evening, Chair Harrington.
Thank you. So board members, we have this very thoughtful proclamation to declare March 2023 as COVID-19 Remembrance Month here in Washington County. What are the wishes of the commission?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve this proclamation. I would not be surprised if there are some commissioners who would like to make some comments. First, why don't we take the vote, and then I'll open the table for any remarks. All those in favor for adopting this proclamation, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Commissioners, is there anyone who wishes to make remarks before I do?
I can start us off. Staff, thank you. Tony and Hemi, thank you so much for coming tonight and reading this proclamation. Tony, everything that you've said really resonated, and it's exactly what was happening to our community who was suffering in the COVID pandemic. As somebody who was managing contact tracing for Washington County, I absolutely saw everything that you mentioned. It's not an exaggeration. Our Latinx community in Washington County was heavily impacted, and we've lost so many members of our community to this COVID. And I really appreciated all the community members and Washington County Public Health team of all the hands-down approach and how you were aggressive in combating this disease and really being there for the community. I can honestly say that of all the community members, community-based organizations that were participating in the contact tracing effort, everyone was really, in this fight. Like, everybody had an, I just get emotional because it was, we've had staff that would make calls to people who the family member would say, I'm so sorry, you missed that person 10 minutes ago, they died. So being frontline with all of you, it's been a really a good journey, a hard journey to be together, but I appreciate all the community-based organizations that we worked with and all the Washington County staff that really were managing this pandemic. So thank you, and I look forward to how we continue, help the community and be there, because we're not out of this pandemic. And as Hemi was reading, there are more people who are dying this disease every day. So we're all in this together again, and look forward to how we roll up our sleeve and have that tough conversation to continue to be there for our community when it comes to public health and COVID management.
Are there any other commissioners who would like to share any remarks? Go ahead, Commissioner Treese.
Thank you, Chair Harrington. I want to thank our staff for pulling everything together here. I want to thank Tony for your words. Thank you very much. I recognize Lorena for being here, and Hemi, you did a great job in reading the proclamation. What I learned through this process is how important partnerships are. We did come together, we did work together, and to honor those that have been lost, I think that we need to carry that ability to partner and meet these challenges, that's how we can honor them. It's very sad, and I'm very sorry about the losses that we experienced, but I'm very pleased with the amount of work and the partnerships that we developed along the way. So thank you to everybody, especially my hats off to our Washington County staff as well. So it was a tough time. It continues to be a time that we have to work hard to continue the fight, but also to recover through this process. So again, thank you to the presenters tonight.
Thank you, commissioners. I join you in appreciation for our staff, our community partners, as well as all of our community members who really stepped forward, those that were physically able to get vaccinated, doing so such that we were each doing our part to protect one another's, whether it was through vaccination or other protocols that were in place. We were certainly blessed to be able to enhance and grow more community partnerships. And I know that I was one of 4 members of this board who just traveled to Washington, D.C. last week or the week before for the National Association of Counties organization meeting. And we learned a boatload about historic funding that has been passed by Congress and signed into law through President Biden, particularly for closing the digital divide and expanding broadband access, particularly for our underserved community members, our low-income community members, our disably challenged or disably unique individuals here in our community, as well as our seniors. And we're certainly going to need our community-based partners to learn as quickly as we are about those broadband programs, because we have a lot of work to do that we need to get in place before the end of the year and get people signed up for that $30 a month of digital access that is now possible. So that is perhaps just one step that we may be able to invest in and partner on for resilience in our community, as well as others. I know the board is looking forward to hearing feedback from the Coronavirus Racial Equity Work Group about what economic recovery looks like to them, so that we can incorporate that into our thinking with regard to the American Rescue Plan Act dollars. We need that information sooner rather than later. So thank you again for helping us remember all who are important to us, not only here in Washington County, but throughout our globe, as certainly I learned very quickly how through our diverse employment workforce, we have many employees who lost loved ones living in other countries during the pandemic. So onward ho we go. Thank you, staff, for once again helping us honor our work together and forge positive paths forward as well. Thank you. And similar but different, we have a second proclamation for this evening to declare March 2023 as American Red Cross Month in Washington County. And for this, I'd like to turn things over to Commissioner Nafisa.
Thank you so much, Chair Harrington. It's my honor to read this proclamation, and a quick story. I have many blessings in my life, and one of those is I've been blessed to work for good employers, and one of that is the American Red Cross. January 13, 2003, I was hired as an American Red Cross staff, and I've just been really proud to work for that organization and really appreciate the work they do, and been frontline staff for the life-saving work that American Red Cross does both in hospitals when it comes to blood or out in disaster. So I'm honored to read this and look forward to if there's any conversations. And I will read. Proclamation, Board of Commissioners for Washington County, proclamate March 2023 as American Red Cross Month in Washington County. Whereas in 1881, Carla Barton founded the American Red Cross, turning her steadfast dedication for helping others into a bold mission for preventing and alleviating people's suffering. And whereas today we honor the kindness and generosity of Red Cross volunteers here in Washington County and Cascades region, who join the millions of people across the United States who volunteer, give blood, donate financially, or learn vital life-preserving skills through the Red Cross. And whereas in the Cascades region, serving Oregon and Southwest Washington, the contributions of more than 2,500 local Red Cross volunteers give hope to the most vulnerable in their darkest hours. And whereas the Red Cross does so by providing more than 1,600 emergency overnight shelter stays, along with food and comfort for families devastated by more than 800 local disasters. And whereas through the generosity of those donating more than 182, my numbers are getting all mixed up, whereas through the generosity of those donating more than 182,000 units of essential blood for accident and burn victims, heart surgery, and organ transplant patients, and those who receive treatment for leukemia, cancer, or sickle cell disease. And whereas in Washington County, the Red Cross works with local agencies and faith-based organizations to support emergency shelters by providing shelter training, coordinating resources, and integrating into local mass care planning efforts. And whereas Washington County serves in a preventative role by assuring access to screening services and treatment of sexually transmitted infections through local providers like Neighborhood Health Center and Virginia Garcia Memorial Health Center. And whereas the month of March is dedicated to all those who continue to advance the noble legacy of American Red Cross founder Clara Barton, who lived by her words, "You must never think of anything except the need and how to meet it." Now therefore, be it resolved that the Washington County Board of Commissioners do hereby proclaim March 1st through March 31st, 2023 as American Red Cross Month.
Madam Chair, I'd be happy to second that great resolution.
Could we have someone make the motion?
I'll make the motion.
Yeah, I thought you just did. Okay.
Well, she read the motion, but I
That's
didn't
right.
hear her
There we
say
go.
the words that she was making the motion. That's why I thought I'd check.
Yeah, I thought you would make the motion, Chair, and then I would second it or move it. And
So Commissioner Feist made the motion and Commissioner Rogers has seconded it. Thank you very much. Would any commissioners like to share any comments, or should we move right to taking a vote?
I'm going to vote yes and donate blood, and I challenge the rest of my commission to do the same.
All those in favor of adopting tonight's proclamation, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. I was reminded from some information I was reading recently via the county, as well as this proclamation tonight, that I do not know how many different buildings across our agency of Washington County government are designated as emergency facilities via the Red Cross. So I look forward to learning more. Thank you, Ms. Angie.
Of course, we will provide that information.
Just on the list of curiosity questions that we learn through the normal course of our business. Thank you.
Chair, if I could jump in, I'm remiss, I should have said this at the first. I'd like to have an opportunity sometime either before this public meeting or after the public meeting to make a motion for reconsideration. So I'll explain that then, okay?
How about after the public hearing?
Perfect.
Terrific. Great. Okay, so next we'll move on to our public hearings. And tonight we have an item before us from Support Services and Susie Fulcher of Procurement. And this is with regard to our need to hold a public hearing related to grant exemption from the community bid process for the Center for Addictions Triage and Treatment Project, and approve the use of an alternative competitive contracting process. So do we have said staff here for any presentation?
Susie, can you hear us?
I can, yes. Thank you, Clerk Moss. Good evening, Chair Harrington, Commissioners. My name is Susie Fulcher. I use she, her pronouns. I am the procurement manager here at Washington County. And if you're thinking there's a little bit of deja vu, you have seen this before. My colleagues from Facilities and Health and Human Services were before you on February 7th with this public hearing. Unfortunately, that public hearing was not noticed correctly, and thus we had to give people another chance to come and make comment should they desire to do so. So this evening is really just a chance for the public to come and make comment if they needed to. There's no change. This is still an exemption from the regular competitive bid process to the construction manager general contractor process for the CAT Center, which will allow us to do an RFP rather than just a straight low bid for this project.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
As you put the materials together for the RFP process, given our prior board discussions and direction towards supporting the use of apprentice programs for those who are working towards journeyman status, as well as for supporting pre-apprentice programs, and possibly, given the nature of construction work here in our county as well as across our tri-county region, information about prevailing wage considerations. Will any of that be, or is it already in the materials that you're preparing for this solicitation with RFP?
Yes, so the prevailing wage considerations are absolutely in there. That's standard. The other considerations for the usage of apprentices, BIPOC subcontractors, women-owned subcontractors, those types of things, because the county, we don't have goals, you need data and there are things, we're working on those things. So instead of us giving them a number, that will be part of the RFP process. The contractors themselves will give us the numbers that they think they can manage and how they're going to do that and what happens if they don't do that. So we're putting on the onus, in this case, on the general contractors until the county is in a position where we have the data to say, we know you can make X percentage, what can you do in addition to that?
Given that we're engaged with the Metro Career Pathways Project, as well as information we have learned from sister counties such as Multnomah County, shouldn't we at least be able to have a checkpoint of what a reasonable target is versus just leaving it totally open to the respondents?
That is an excellent question. That's something we can work on.
And I apologize for putting you on the spot. I did not mean to. I was just looking over at Ms. Angie. So just so you know, it's perfectly fine for you to toss that ball over to Ms. Angie.
It's an excellent question, and it is something, unfortunately, we don't have a great answer for.
Well, Ms. Fulcher, I think we can follow up with the board and provide the clarity of the question, how we can work with the partners that we're utilizing to help build out our program here at Washington County, because we are evolving our practice from the current state to a future state. So we'll get back to the board on that.
Yep. So I'm not trying to accelerate that timeline by any stretch of the imagination. But see, how can we work towards that? That's all.
Absolutely.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, well, are there any other board questions or comments at this stage? Seeing none, I would like to open a public hearing. Clerk Moss, do we have anyone who wishes to speak on this matter?
Madam Chair, we had no one sign up in the room, so any members viewing the meeting online via Zoom, if you would like to provide public comment on this public hearing for up to 2 minutes, just please use the raise hand function. I'll give you just a moment. Not seeing any hands. Chair Harrington.
And with that, I'd like to close this public hearing. And I just want to check in with Mr. Carr to make sure I do things procedurally correct on this matter. At this juncture, do I need to ask for a motion to ratify the minute item 23-30? Okay, so commissioners, at this juncture, having held the public comment, I'm asking for a motion to ratify minute item 23-30, the grant exemption that grants exemption from the competitive bid process for the Center for Addictions Triage and Treatment Project, and approve the use of an alternative competitive contracting process.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of the motion, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. That brings us to the end of public hearings, and I want to turn the mic over to my colleague, Commissioner Willie.
Thank you, Chair. As you remember, a week ago, we made approved an EMS decision to move ahead with the recommended course of action from the staff. Since that time, we have received a letter of protest from one of the applicants that had a significant amount of information in the letter. So I would like to ask for a motion for reconsideration to delay that decision until March 21st to allow the staff to process the information and get back to us with their findings. The reason for March 21, by the way, is because that's spring break and we don't have a meeting the next week, and I didn't want to delay it into April. So that's the reason. So that's my motion.
I'd be happy to second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Willie and Commissioner Rogers. So for the members of our audience, this is with regard to, there it is, an action item that we had on our board agenda last week, action item 1, where we selected the vendor and authorized the Washington County Emergency Management Services EMS program to begin negotiations for the 911 Emergency Transportation Franchise Agreement. That was approved on a vote of 3-1. There were only 4 commissioners in attendance that particular meeting. Commissioner Rogers was excused. He was out of state that particular week. So at this juncture, we have a motion and a second. I would like to ask Mr. Carr to please let us know procedurally what such a motion of reconsideration might involve.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So under Section 8C of the Rules of Procedure, any decision by the board can be reconsidered as long as the motion is made by any board member at the next meeting. A motion consideration is a motion, so for it to pass, you would need 3 votes to agree. If the motion passes, the rules provide that the meeting has to be at least 2 weeks later to allow for notice to anyone who appeared on the record on the prior consideration. So as I understand Commissioner Willie's motion, it is a motion for reconsideration. I recommend that the motion now being on the floor, you can take comments and discussion and then call for a vote. If the vote passes, then reconsideration would be that reconsideration would be scheduled for March 21st. If the vote fails, nothing further will happen.
And that March 21st meeting is an evening meeting. Let me double check. Yes, it is.
Okay.
Versus an afternoon meeting, just so everyone knows, because of the spring break. So, okay, so right now we have a motion and a second. Is everyone clear on the logistics?
I have a question, Chair Harrington, for Tom Carr, if that's okay. Tom, could you repeat earlier? I think you gave a really good explanation, and I think I was following you, what you said in our, was it work session? I think it was a work session around what the process is of this appeal, and could you differentiate board level versus county administrator level?
Thank you, Commissioner Fye. That might be very helpful. So where we are right now is the board has made its final decision. And absent any other action by the board, the board will not see this again. What we have now is a bid protest. That is a staff level determination in implementing the board's decision. The staff has received the document challenging the bid. The staff is reviewing that document. Ultimately, the county administrator decides on whether to accept the challenge or not. If the county administrator decides not to accept the challenge, we go forward with the board's decision. The challenger could then bring a lawsuit in the circuit court challenging that decision. If the county administrator could decide to reverse the challenge, and then we would bring it back to the board for further action. So to accept the challenge and bring it back to the board for further action, essentially redoing the process.
Thank you so much. I was following you this morning, and I think you even hit the, whatever that saying is, you hit the nail in the head. I appreciate that explanation, Tom Carr. In terms of this motion in front of us, Commissioner Willie, I highly respect you and really appreciate what you're trying to do, but with that explanation, I will be voting no.
Commissioner Treese, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Mr. Carr, the last part of what you said was that if the county administrator disagreed, we would move forward with the board's decision. If the county administrator agreed, I think you said we would restart the process?
Yeah, if there was some change to the process, then we'd have to redo it.
The entire process?
That would determine on the nature of the taint, but yes.
Okay, thank you.
So one more question along that line, Tom. If they don't like the decision that Tanya made, so they take us to court, that's going to further delay our ability to move ahead on this. Is that correct?
Not necessarily. It could. It would depend on whether or not they got an injunction. So a court would have to find that there was a likelihood of success on the merits and enjoin the action going further.
But considering that we probably wouldn't want to move ahead on this decision pending the decision in the court, because then if that got reversed, we'd have to go backwards. So there'd be a number of things we'd have to redo.
Wouldn't necessarily be my advice. I would, again, we are very early in the bid protest process. The experts who understand the process have not had a chance to completely go through all of the allegations. So I would hold off on that, and I would advise you based on what we know once we have a few more facts.
Thank you. And I think that's precisely why I'm asking for reconsideration, because we don't know what the results of this protest is going to result in. So we have this opportunity to hit the pause button for 3 weeks, get more information, and make a more educated decision rather than where we are right now, which is somewhat unknown. That's the reason why I'm asking for reconsideration.
Thank you, Commissioner Willie. Commissioner Rogers, you have a comment to make?
Yeah, speaking of the motion, I really don't have a preference as to who we ultimately select. As you mentioned, Chair, I was on vacation after about a year and some months. I thought it might be necessary to get away for a week. The reason that I seconded the motion of Commissioner Willie and support it is that there are so many unknowns in this appeal process. I fail to see why his motion for in essence, 3-week continuance hurts anything other than gives us clarity as to the issues and that Tom can come forward. This could be a very expensive litigation process and one that I don't relish the county spending a lot of hard-earned dollars on without us knowing fully what we're confronting. And so Tom, I respect that you've given us good advice. At the same time, I don't think any of us are fully apprised as to what the cost might be and what our obligations might be. So I think it's very wise and prudent to extend it as Commissioner Willie suggested.
Go ahead, Commissioner Treese, and then I'm going to make my comments.
Thank you. I'm just going to reiterate what I said at the last week, and that was that I have faith in the system that we put in place to go through this bid process, and I have confidence in the team that was put together to review the application. So I will be voting no.
Thank you, Commissioner Treese. My comments are, as I said last week, this was a standard RFP process. Our staff did a good job of putting together the request for proposal and working with the EMS Alliance to make sure that we had a quality RFP. I stand by the process that was used to request proposals and that the review committee used to consider those proposals and to bring a recommendation towards to us. I asked questions last week, given the motion that Commissioner Willie made at that time to pause the decision, and there were comments made about there being other information, and my impression was that an assertion was made that I was not considering additional information. Irrespective of that, I felt that I had appropriate information through the process and felt comfortable in moving forward with that decision last Tuesday, just as I do today. So last Tuesday, we approved the RFP top bidder on a vote of 3-1 with 1 absent, and I will be voting in opposition to this motion to reconsider. So are there another round of comments to be made that might have any additional information beyond what has already been said tonight?
I call for the question.
Thank you, Commissioner Willie. All those in favor of the motion for reconsideration, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed, please raise your hand or vote by saying aye. Thank you, commissioners. The motion fails on a vote of 2-3. Okay, that brings us to the second public comment period of this evening. Clerk Moss, do we have anyone who wishes to engage with us for up to 5 minutes?
So So, Madam Chair, we do not have anyone in the room. Would anyone join us online via Zoom wish to provide comment on any county-related business for up to 5 minutes? Give you just a moment to utilize the raised hand function. Not seeing any hands. Chair Harrington.
Thank you, Clerk Moss. Before I go to board announcements, I do want to say that it was very enjoyable to hear from members of our 4-H community this evening. Very bright, articulate, and with younger people of that caliber, I think our future is in good hands. So that's great. All right.
Chair Harrington, before we conclude, I can follow up just on the Red Cross inquiry that you had placed. So within Washington County, we have 22 facilities throughout Washington County that could operate as emergency shelters through Red Cross in case of need. So that's a combination of county facilities and also community-based facilities. So 22, so I think we're well supported. And my understanding is there's geographical dispersion as well.
I was particularly interested in which ones are our agency numbers.
Oh, okay. Well, that I will have to inquire further. But we now know it's 22 countywide.
More than we have cities in Washington County. All the better. That's great. Good to know. Thank you. All right. So for board announcements, I'll kick off by announcing our future meetings. This Thursday, March 2nd, March already, ugh. Although I'm ready for daffodils, enough of this snow stuff. Sorry, I digress. Roundtable starts at 9 o'clock this Thursday morning. The following Tuesday, March 7th, work session at 9. We'll pause that and go into the Housing Authority Board of Directors meeting at 10. And a board meeting that will immediately follow the adjournment of the Housing Authority meeting. Our staff estimates about 45 minutes later, 10:45, and then we'll reconvene our work session later. Tuesday, March 14th is only a work session day, and then Tuesday, March 21st, due to public school spring break the following week, we're going to have our pair of meetings with a work session at 2 in the afternoon, just like today, and a board meeting at 6:30 in the evening. So please note that is an evening meeting that week. And the week of March 27th, we're not going to meet on Tuesday, March 28th. So enjoy your week. And then we're into April. I am so not ready for April. So are there any other board announcements or leadership communication for this evening? No? Seeing none, I would ask for a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting of Tuesday, February 28th, 2023. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. We're hereby adjourned. Good night, Diane.